everybody, and welcome to the Art Gallery of Algoma's Summer Art Series. My name's Audrey, and today I'll be showing you how to make an acrylic painting inspired by Vincent van Gogh's sunflowers. We're going to be creating this entire painting using small dots of color. This technique is known as Pointillism or Divisionism, and it was developed around 1886. Pointillism came out of the Impressionist movement and was practiced by neo-impressionist artists like Georges Seurat. While Van Gogh's original sunflowers may not be the best example of this technique, he also used divisionism in many of his paintings. This technique can be seen in a number of his self-portraits, as well as in his most famous work, The Starry Night. So without further ado, let's get into it. The things you'll need in order to create your painting will be a piece of thick paper such as watercolor paper or a small canvas, acrylic paint in all different colors, a pencil, a ruler, Q-tips, a paint palette, you can use a paper plate or a pie tin, a brush to mix your colors, a cup of water, and a napkin or paper towel to clean off your brush in between mixing colors. Before we begin, it's always a good idea to cover your surface with a garbage bag, newspapers, or an old tablecloth, and to put on clothing that you wouldn't mind getting paint on, since acrylic paint can get a bit messy. Today we'll be working with our paper or canvas in portrait mode. Using a ruler, the first thing we're going to do is make a straight horizontal line about 2/3 of the way down our page. This will serve as the tabletop that the flower vase is sitting on. Leaving a little bit of space at the bottom of your page, draw a smile curve like so to create the bottom of your vase. Then, draw 2 diagonal lines coming up from that curve and pointing away from each other. These lines should end a little ways above the horizontal line we drew first, and they should mirror each other. Coming up from those 2 lines, draw 2 more diagonal lines. This time they should slant towards each other, and again, try to make them fairly symmetrical. Following the shape of the curve that we drew at the bottom, we'll connect our diagonal lines with another smile curve to create the top of the vase. Draw one last curve in the middle of your vase. This curve should be drawn in about the same spot where our initial horizontal line was. You can now erase the parts of the horizontal line that remain in the middle of your vase. Now we're going to draw on all sorts of shapes at the top of our vase as guidelines for our sunflowers. The flowers can be circles, ovals, or even more like a moon or a bean shape depending on which way the flowers are facing. Try to use a bunch of different shapes to give your painting some variety. Now draw a few stems in any sparse areas where the stems will be showing through. You can even make 1 or 2 droopy sunflowers. Now we'll create pointed curves around some of our sunflowers to make petals. You don't have to do this to all of your flowers, since some flowers are so full that they look more rounded on the edge. You may also want to add in a few small leaves here and there. Now we'll start painting our background. Above the horizontal line, we'll begin applying a mid-toned blue with our Q-tip. Create small polka dots all over your background, and be sure to paint in between the flower petals. As you're painting, try to move from top to bottom, left to right if you're right-handed, just to avoid sticking your hand in the wet paint. If you're left-handed, try moving from right to left instead. Next, use a lighter blue to make even more dots. If you don't have a lighter blue paint, simply mix some white into your blue. It might be helpful to rotate your page as you're working. This will also help you to avoid putting your hand in the wet paint. As you're painting, don't be afraid to overlap the dots a bit. After you've finished applying your light blue, mix to get an even lighter blue and create more dots all throughout your background. It's okay if a little bit of white space shows through the dots, but for the most part, try to fill in all of the empty space. Now we'll paint the bottom section. Begin by making dots all over with your yellow paint. You can use the same yellow to create dots on the top section of your vase. Now, start making orange dots throughout the bottom section, filling in some of the white space. Mix some yellow and orange together on your palette to create a lighter orange, and make 1 more layer of dots at the bottom to fill in the rest of your white space. Using a tan brown color, make dots on the top and bottom of your vase. Use the light orange that we just mixed to make more dots on the top section. Now go back to your yellow paint and use that to fill in any white space on the top of your vase. You can also use it to layer over top of your other colors to lighten things up a bit. Use a darker brown to paint more dots on the bottom half of your vase. Then mix some white into your tan to lighten it and paint on that color, layering it over top of your brown dots a bit. Now start making yellow dots on some of your sunflowers. You can start having some fun experimenting with other colors to shade your flowers and give them some depth. You'll notice how I layered some orange and tan dots over top of my yellow, concentrating the orange at the edge of the flower. Continue adding orange to darken up the edges, and use some of the yellow-orange we mixed earlier to create a nice gradient or fade between the two. Use this process on all of your flower petals. Now we'll begin adding in some other colors. I decided to create a purple leafy section to the left side of my bouquet, since purple is the complementary color of yellow. If you take a look at Van Gogh's paintings, such as his Sunflowers or the Starry Night, you'll notice that he often used a complementary color scheme, which really makes the colors pop. You can also use purple dots in the middle of some of your flowers and to create a ring around the center of others. Lighten up your purple and give it some depth by layering some red dots over top. Red can also be used in or around the center of some of your sunflowers, or you can mix it in with the orange to darken up the edge of some of your petals. Some of the other colors you may want to add to your flowers are mustard yellow, tan, and brown. We'll now begin painting our leaves using a dark yellow color. Layer over top of the yellow on your leaves with a mid-toned green, and don't forget to create the stems peeking through. Fill in any areas of the background in between the leaves or stems that you might have missed before using a couple different shades of blue. Now we're going to use purple dots to outline the vase, just like Van Gogh did in many of his sunflower paintings. Our outline will still be made up of dots. To make smaller dots for a thinner outline, try using the back of a paintbrush. Darken up your leaves and stems using darker green dots. Add some more shading to any areas of your flowers that you want to add a bit more depth to. I would suggest adding a darker color like tan or brown where your flowers overlap the yellow vase, just so that they stand out instead of blending in. You can continue adding orange or red around the edges of the sunflowers to make them come alive. Finally, if there are any areas that you're not happy with the shape of, you can change that simply by layering some more dots over top. And there we have it. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and follow the Art Gallery of Algoma on social media if you're not already. Thank you so much for watching.